Welcome viewers to Historical Journeys. With a flashlight illuminating his path, the man makes his way through an Australian museum. He is the only one present in this eerie silence. Unexpectedly, however, the man quits. Something has gotten his attention in one of the artworks. Furthermore, when he at last sorts out the thing it is he's taking a gander at reality, will totally daze the craftsmanship world. A specialist took a gander at a 100-year-old showstopper and found it was concealing a bewildering secret. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It only takes a second, and you won't miss any of our future videos. Let's get started. The room he was taking a gander at was situated in the public display of Victoria, Melbourne, NGV, and the composition he was taking a gander at was one of the most well-known showstoppers in Australia. It has been in the NGV beginning around 1906 on the grounds that it was passed on to the gallery by good cause quite a long time back, and the proprietor was not a cheat. Michael Varco Cox works at the exhibition hall as protection administrator. Because he is an artist who worked in the second half of the 19th century, he can tell you about the works that are on display. Regardless of his exhaustive information on workmanship, Varco Cox could never have anticipated the job he would play in Varco Cox's This is Australian trailblazer and craftsman Frederick May. What to find in the photographs taken by Frederick McCubbin. This work was painted in 1904 and is viewed as quite possibly of Australia's most noteworthy painting. The NGV keeps on characterizing pioneers as specialists. Varco Cox was without a doubt acquainted with the trailblazer and had seen it ordinarily while working at the gallery. At the point when McCubbin, 25, made his most memorable buy, he started off in great shape. He won many honors, and by the mid-1880s, he had started a profession that would see him acclaimed as a representation of the Australian bramble. All of this prompted McCubbin. Toward the decade's end, he entered school to concentrate on painting. Then, at that point, when the new century rolled over, McCubbin heard the pulling of shrubs, and the craftsman took his family to Mount Macedon, close to Melbourne. Naturally, it ended up at Pioneer. In the late 19th 100 years, enormous quantities of European craftsmen came to Australia to share their insight into the artistic expression. They additionally spearheaded the hedge-propelled Australian distributing style, of which McCubbin was one of the defenders. Australian Impressionists zeroed in on tones that appeared to be extraordinarily Australian. They portrayed a fruitless, waterless ground and eucalyptus woods in the sand. Mount Macedon proved to be the ideal setting for McCubbin to produce outstanding work. Albeit this isn't one of McCubbin's strip compositions of Australian scenes, it is without a doubt quite possibly of his best work. Trailblazer portrays the existences of a pioneer family. Utilizations his three boards to show the progressions they go through in the Victorian timberland. Also, in spite of his standing as an impressionist, McCubbin portrays the family with a nearly photorealism. In the photograph on the left you can see a man and his better half who have recently shown up in the bramble. Australian pioneers during the 1860s were permitted to obtain land in certain settlements, yet for this situation it seems to have been a segment of whole backwoods. McCubbin portrays this in quiet, rich tones. Notwithstanding, in the center obviously time has elapsed. We can track our loved ones. In any case, on the right, you can see that the clock is beginning to tick once more. Now there was a town through a lot of the forest, and in front of it, an elderly man knelt by the grave. We additionally don't have the foggiest idea who this burial place has a place with, yet there is no image of the tenant and his significant other, which demonstrates anything. It won't be sold for a long time, but the friend of my cousin has a plan to make Melbourne the last party city. At the point when McCubbin completed the work, the artwork was sold. With respect to the actual composition, you ought to realize that it was made numerous years after Australia turned into a province. You can see that they are glad for the legacy of the trailblazers who came to the shores of this land, battled in the woodland, and established the extraordinary urban communities that were subsequently tracked down along the shoreline of Australia. Nonetheless, we might see an alternate story in trailblazers. Ladies who pursue the main direction are not content with their desires, and the trailblazer life might appear to be a piece little. The Last Edge, maybe, recommends that the occupant's child leaves his life as a youngster home and comes to the city. Anything that McCubbin's actual aims, Trailblazer remained in the NGV and was cherished by guests. Bucko Cox discovers something else to enhance the artwork as he inspects an abandoned studio to ensure that everything is in working order. There's an off-base thing under the entire composition, and McCubbin is by all accounts concealing it. In a meeting with the Australian TV program Dawn, he made sense of that. Subsequent to shutting, I strolled around with a spotlight examining every one of the works of art. Then I turned into the most renowned trailblazer. What did he see? Bucko Cox seems to have approached X-beams of the work of art made in 2013. He noticed something new about Harbinger after paying close attention to the scan results. I was reminded by the current recording on the Cox ship of a small, colorless drawing I had previously seen in McCubbin's notebook. The episode includes a bushman and his child, and a craftsman named after the trailblazer Bucko Cox who saw the first light. I saw an enormous figure in the woodland holding a little kid. It is tracked down in woodlands. The conservator then realized that underneath the pioneer was an additional piece of McCubbin's art that had been lost for a century and had been hidden in a painting. So the subsequent stage is to figure out what Bucko Cox trusts at this moment. Specialists said that addressing the secret is more astounding and astonishing than others. That secret artistic creation can't be taken out from the trailblazer in light of the fact that McCubbin constructed his work of art right on top of it, and keeping in mind that that is something beneficial for the craftsman. A disgrace so that those need might be able to see my cousin's last work completely. McCubbin was rarely alone, making new chips away atop of old ones. In 2020, it was uncovered that Picasso's well-known 1922 Cubist still life had eclipsed McCubbin's previous neoclassical sculpture. He made works with incredible meticulousness, adding and scratching more paint until he felt his work was finished. This implies that McCubbin has consistently painted a ton of purported pentamenti, or leftovers of prior works of art. In any case, Bucko Cox knew how fortunate his disclosure was. This permits all the more light to go through each surface layer of paint and enlighten what's under. At the point when NGV workmanship researcher Beam Collins took a gander at one more composition in 2007, he found the strategy very valuable. Additionally, McCubbin was responsible for it once more. The letter portrays a lady strolling along a waterway, looking at a note in her grasp, probably from her sweetheart, and Mr. Collins uncovers a portion of McCubbin's initial work under. I took a X-beam of the craftsmanship in order to see it. She figured out how to track down one more sculpture under the paint. This secret similarity is remembered to have been drawn by McCubbin during her understudy days. Collins told Australian paper The Messenger Mail, "We were exceptionally amazed to track down this sculpture inside." Furthermore, this painting likewise says a great deal regarding the public display school. Ms. Collins included a meeting with the Dispatch Mail that this is great new data that will assist individuals with understanding. Truly fascinating that the image isn't exactly what it appears, and McCubbin's feelings were uncovered again in 2015 when the Australian synchrotron, which creates an exceptionally brilliant light, enlightened him from the north wind. Underneath the parched scene portrayed in the 1888 magnum opus lies another scene, this time lavish. It is accepted that McCubbin rolled out this improvement to serve the envisioned requirements of the settlers. Cox wouldn't agree that whether he accepted his disclosure would build the work of art's money-related esteem. McCubbin showed his work at the Victorian Craftsman presentation and was generally welcomed by participants. That is the reason he chose to utilize the material once more. Bucko Cox accepts this occurred. He told Sky News that McCubbin at last chose to paint Trailblazer on a material since he would have rather not squandered the material. Bucko Cox likewise said that this will be thought of. Furthermore, the Historical Center chief's last picture of the revelation of coal not just made sense of what occurred after the disclosure, Bucko Cox told the Messenger Son, yet started to see even the impacts of the self-evident. The pioneer's beginnings. Presently, he won't take a gander at McCubbin's work once more. Thanks for watching. If you want to stay updated with our latest videos, subscribing is the way to go. Just click that red button below and become a part of our channel family.